Hello everyone and welcome to the Not Just New Movies podcast, the show where we review a seemingly random film currently not in theaters. My name is Ben Pearson and today we're going to be talking about George Miller and George Ogilvie's 1985 film Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. Joining me is my regular co-host, Tyler. How are you, man?
Hey, Ben, I actually do need another hero. I can't find my way home.
Yes, indeed.
I'm lost. I'm a lost boy, and unless you didn't pick up on some of those themes in this
the many hook references that are in this movie,
yeah.
or
pre-references.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we're going to get into that. If you're a first-time listener, welcome to this show. You can find all of our previous episodes at njnmpodcast.blogspot.com. If you'd like to contact us, you can do that by email at notjustnewmovies@gmail.com. And this is Not Just New Movies to the third power, covering movies that have the number 3 in the title or that are a third entry in a franchise. Mm-hmm. So this is a miniseries. And Tyler, this is the last entry in this particular miniseries. How are you feeling about this chapter of the podcast coming to a close?
A little sad, but I know there's plenty of threequels to go around, so you never know. But there's also fourquels and fivequels, so
yeah, and who knows what will happen in the future. But before we get into today's discussion, I want to see if Tyler has any hot tea to pour today.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
I thought that because it's been a little while since we've recorded, I wonder if I was like, I wonder if I'm going to spring this on him and he's not going to be prepared with the hot tea.
You know, I have a bunch of drafts that I can just like rip fire you with.
Fantastic. Yeah, let's hear it. Just empty the folder. Just dump it on the desk right now.
Let's see. Unravel my scroll here. Let's see. These were pretty good. These were the ones that didn't make the cut. Woodland Santa is the only Santa.
Okay.
So that's the Santa that like lives in the forest and wears like animal skins, and you see him sometimes in like a Michael's or a Hobby Lobby.
Sure. Yep.
I love the sea. I think that's
the SEA or just like the letter C. You're just a big fan of that one. Okay.
Yeah, SEA. Love it. Love the water. Love the seaside towns. Everything about it. And then I think my third one was sports. Sports should just be canceled. I think we're good.
Wow! My God, that is the hottest tea of all.
It was scalding a few weeks ago, but I was watching some football game and college professional. I don't even know. And I was just like, you know what? I think after 70 years of recorded sports entertainment, we could just rerun those. Like, have you seen the 1955 Heisman Trophy Championship or whatever it is?
No, I guess I can't say that I have.
Yeah, so. And you tune into that, right? If it was like premiering on Sunday.
You know, I guess we are a little starved for content these days, so exactly. Maybe. Oh man,
so, that's the hot tea is sports. You're gone. You're canceled.
I love this.
We could fill it with so much more. My original idea was to come up with more original sports. Like I've seen football, I don't know, 1,000 billion times. Yeah, like anything that's like I have to learn new rules for, or people are like actually doing something. Like the X Games, a pretty good example. Like I would like to see that as a mainstream. Like people doing ollies and stuff.
Yeah, I think we really missed out on the golden era where it seemed like slam ball was being considered as a competitive, like a real traditional sport there for a little while. It was just like, you know, it was like a 2-week stretch where it was like, is slam ball going to be like the next big thing? And of course it wasn't. But man, that was a great period.
It was the only show that really got Spike TV on the map and then quickly off the map.
Yeah, I think it transformed into like the Esquire network for like a year and then just self-destructed or something. Who knows? Pour out some hot tea for the Spike TV network. You're going to save it.
What was the one we would watch was, it wasn't 1,000 Ways to Die, but it was, Mansers. We watched that.
Did we? I don't remember that. I remember watching MXC, the Most Extreme Elimination Challenge.
Okay. Yes, I do remember that too. Maybe I was just watching Mansers, and maybe I thought my friends should be here with me. I wish I had friends.
I can't get over the no sports thing. That is like maybe the most nuclear take I've ever heard. Like, sports, you're over. I love it. Wow.
I was in a bad mood that day, so it's probably good it didn't make it into the final draft.
Okay, well, we have it preserved here for posterity. But Tyler,
I don't hate sports. I just think it should be canceled.
Okay.
Like, I'm tired. I'm tired of new stuff that I have to tune in for.
Would you consider a suspension of all sports, maybe for like 5 years, and then?
No, we tried that, and then they tried to bring it back, and they were like, "It's got to be back. People need sports." I was like, "No, I'm good."
Okay, all right.
It's like I'd much rather watch Bridgerton. See what those cats are up to.
Just give them some pigskin and maybe combine the best of both worlds.
Yeah, let's go back to leather helmets and like peach baskets.
All right. Well, Tyler, I think it's time. 2 podcasters enter, only 1 podcaster leaves. Let's talk about Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome.
The world had been through a trial by fire, and only the greatest warriors and their deadliest enemies emerged from the flames.
Who are you?
Nobody.
I'm still. I can feel it. The dice are rolling.
He was the one they called Mad.
But he's just a raggedy man.
But to those whose lives hung in the balance,
Where's the waiting ones? Waiting for what? Waiting for you.
he was the one they called Hero.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dying times here.
Now, Mad Max is back in Beyond Thunderdome. Mel Gibson, Tina Turner, Mad Max.
Okay, let's do some table setting real quick.
Mm-hmm.
What is your relationship to the Mad Max franchise, and have you ever seen this entry before?
Most of Thunderdome for me was a punchline or like a reference to the Thunderdome. I'd never seen it. I'm not like a huge Mad Max fan, but I did recently watch whatever the second one was, The Road Warrior, right? Mad Max is the first one.
Straight,
because they kind of feel like the Evil Dead movies, where it's like one's a remake of the original one that's kind of crappy. But yeah, I think Mad Max is the first one where he's dressed up like a cop, and then the second one's Road Warrior, where he looks like Mad Max, and then this one.
Yes, you're correct. I'm looking this up now. You're correct.
Okay. And then Fury Road, but hadn't seen it. Not a lot of Thunderdome, Ben.
I guess that's true. There's really only one scene.
There's one scene with the Thunderdome, and then it goes, "Hey, it's White Savior now, White Savior time." Yeah, I was very much missing the Thunderdome, and I also thought the Thunderdome would be bigger. I thought it would be more of a Coliseum, which it was, but it was also a jungle gym toy.
Yes,
where people just kind of hung out. It's just a little larger than maybe your standard whatever those jungle gyms are called. Mm-hmm. The half a Epcot ball.
Yeah, right.
So have you experienced? I know you probably watched Fury Road, but had you seen the other entries?
I have seen Mad Max. I watched The Road Warrior, and then I skipped Beyond Thunderdome and watched Fury Road. So, and this is over a course of maybe like 10 years. I watched all these movies or something. So it's been a long time since I've seen the earlier entries. For some reason, I had heard that Beyond Thunderdome was not great. Sort of like the Godfather 3 of this franchise, I guess in the lead up to Fury Road when only 3 movies existed. And so I was like, I guess I just never need to see that. So I just skipped it. And then I figured Fury Road, it didn't necessarily have any like narrative links back. These movies are very, they all sort of work on their own as just sort of like Max as like this man with no name figure who wanders into a scenario and then wanders out, and like Bruce Banner at the end of the Incredible Hulk or something, like just moving on to the next adventure. So this was my first time watching this movie, and I have to say it kind of slaps. I thought this movie was like pretty great. I mean, it's just I was so instantly okay. So the first 2 notes I have down, I'll read these to you really quickly. Okay. I was immediately intrigued by how everybody got the person as X format of the credits in the very beginning, like before the movie even opens. It's like Frank Thring as the Collector, Angry Anderson as Iron Bar. And I'm like, most movies don't do this. Normally what happens is that kind of thing is only saved for the very end of the opening credits, where it's like, it'll have all the people's just names. And then it'll be like, with Michael Caine as Johnson
Screws.
and whoever, Chris Pratt has Star-Lord or whatever the hell. And so normally you only get like a tiny tease at the character names before you're actually introduced to them. And I always like that as like, oh, who's this person? Mm-hmm. Like I haven't met them yet, but this movie is like, or these credits were like, here's every character in the movie before you meet them. And I was
very
like,
Shakespearean.
This is really cool. And then I was just so immersed in the world. I thought the whole thing was just really tactile in the way that I feel like the best Star Wars movies are, where like each prop and piece of set decoration and stuff like that seems to have like an entire backstory of its own. Everything feels so handmade and lived in, and just not fake in a way that I feel like is sort of rare to see, especially in movies that take such big swings in terms of like setting themselves in a post-apocalyptic society and all that stuff. A lot of times it can just feel, by the numbers, or like, oh yeah, this is pretty formulaic. This is what these kinds of things are supposed to look like from other movies or magazines or pulp novels or whatever. And this just felt so specific and I don't know. Yeah. Just like very, the vision of one guy, and not necessarily, like you would see this version of the future anywhere.
Yeah, I thought it looked real authentic, and the characters all seemed very, not relatable, but something that you, like you were explaining, you kind of dropped into this area where things have been working like this for decades.
Yeah.
I really did like the kind of almost like the Terminator 2 effects towards the end. I think some of the effects were really cool. It felt a little bit like a Lynch Dune at some points, where it was very dreamy and I don't know, vaporwave. Is that a thing you're into?
I guess I've heard that term. I don't know if I could define it.
But, something where I think vaporwave is like it's different from synthwave and chillwave and sleepwave.
Are those all real things, or do you just make those up?
Nope.
Wow. Okay.
But vaporwaves, remembering a past that never existed, I think is the best definition of vaporwave. Anyway, what did I want to say? Oh, I really liked the end, where it kind of alludes to what had happened, and I'm probably not going to get an explanation in Fury Road, but I do like the idea of them kind of referring back to our world, but then like, yep, it's all gone. Don't worry about it. We're the tale tellers now, or whatever they call themselves at the end.
Yeah.
The little group of children.
I have to stop you for a second. Have you never seen Fury Road?
No. I was going to watch it. I was going to watch it last night. I have it on Blu-ray, and I was like, I'm going to watch both of these. But then I was like, well, I don't want to watch Thunderdome, and then watch Fury Thunder Road, and get them confused. So I only watched the one. So I'm going to, if anyone cares, I'll have thoughts on that probably by the end of this week.
Yeah, I'm genuinely excited to hear what you think about that.
I'm sure I'll like it. I liked this one.
It's just so unlike any modern blockbuster. Man, I'm excited to hear that. But yeah, so let's talk about this movie. So what did you think about Tina Turner? Because I don't think I've ever seen her act in anything before. Well, I'll check that while you're telling me. And I
think what I want to address is Mel Gibson first, and then we could talk about Tina Turner, because I liked her in this. And Mel Gibson, I read back on some of the things he's said and should be fired for.
Yes.
And I think that guy has like some major addiction problems and needs to maybe seek help. A lot of the stuff he said, he did apologize for, which is rare nowadays. But I didn't want to focus on him. I just want to kind of give my 2 cents on, if you say stupid shit, apologize for it and kind of get the help you need. So anyway.
Yeah, no, I think everyone listening can like do your own research into all of that, and I think we can just say, you know, a lot of that stuff was really, really awful, and just leave it at that, and just try to like separate it as much as possible, just for the purposes of this conversation. But we
don't support like, you know, hate and anti-Semitism or anything like that. We're not trying to be like, oh, he's a good guy at heart. It's like, you just don't say stupid shit. And also learn to love people instead of hate them. But then again, he's also struggling with addiction, so I don't want to say that everybody. Anyway, Tina Turner. I was trying to come up with something where we don't talk about him, but also kind of briefly talk about the dangers of that slippery slope. But we'll save that for another podcast.
Yeah.
Did Tina Turner act in any other movies? Because she was good in this.
Yes, so she was in
a film called... the costume.
she appeared as herself in several documentaries.
That doesn't count.
Appeared in Tommy, which I think is the
Who.
Yeah, the Who rock opera. Pinball Wizard. And then she was in this movie, and then she was in Last Action Hero as the mayor, which I have seen, and I just forgot that she was in that. I guess it was a very small role. So
must have been.
A couple other sort of scattered things, but this is like one of the rare moments where she actually like played a full, you know, a full-on character that didn't have anything to do with herself.
Auntie Entity, which is a great name.
It is.
Or it gives her like an otherworldly, like deities of sorts. Anti-entity.
I kind of loved. I think the thing I loved about her the most is the very end of the movie, where you know, there's this big chase sequence, and Max ends up like facilitating the escape of these kids, and we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
But just the way that she sort of rolls up on him at the very end, and is just like, oh well, you got me. Like, she takes the L better than any movie character I think that I've ever seen. She's just like, see you later, soldier, and just like takes off. Like, she doesn't murder him. She doesn't, like, you know, she isn't too furious that her entire potential way of life has been crumbled because this mastermind has been, you know, whisked away. She's just like, oh well. Shrug shoulders, walk away. Bygones be bygones, kind of thing.
Well, you got to make room for that sequel, baby.
I wonder if they thought that she might come back in another one, because I think there were plans for another movie, like for years and years before Fury Road actually came out, because there was like, I don't know, 30 years or something between between Beyond Thunderdome and Fury Road coming out.
And then did you listen to the whole theme song or track based on Thunderdome at the end credits? Because I listened to the whole thing. And
was it good?
Oh yeah, it's real good. It fits the movie really well. I mean, I've heard it before on the radio, but after watching the movie and then listening to it, it's like, oh yeah, that's pretty good.
Okay.
Talking about something that slaps, Ben, if you're using that terminology.
Yeah.
We Don't Need Another Hero. I think that's the name of the song. And then something right. Thunderdome, parenthetical something Thunderdome. Ben, so let's start in Bartertown, every kink in the world that you can think of town. What did you find that there might have been a group of people that came up with all these different characters and looks, or do you think it was just Miller and Kennedy and the other guy that came up with every single kink in this town?
Well,
by the way, we're not kink shaming, we're kink glorifying, because this town has everything.
Right. Just to clear up one thing, I was reading about this right before we started recording, and you mentioned Kennedy, Byron Kennedy, who was George Miller's producer, who worked with him for, I think, every movie up until this one. And Kennedy actually passed away before this movie was made. So this is the first Mad Max film made without him. And at the very end of the movie, it says for Byron, and that's the dedication there. So he didn't have anything to do with this one. And from all accounts, it sounds like Miller was really like going through grief, like the stages of grief, and sort of paying tribute to his friend and colleague by making this movie. It was like almost like a cathartic experience for him, like going back into the desert and making another Mad Max movie, because these guys had sort of built their careers on this, you know, with this franchise beforehand. So I think it was his way of like honoring his fallen friend. So I you know, maybe that puts the movie in a new light or something for people if they know that going in. So
that's nice.
Yeah, Bartertown, man. Like that's what I was talking about, where it all felt like a Star Wars kind of thing in the best way to me, where it's like, God, every single business here, every character walking around, it feels like they all have stories. It feels like a living, breathing place instead of just a set that was erected for 5 minutes between takes or whatever. It really feels like a whole world. And I looked to see if this production designer had done anything.
Oh yeah, done like a Popeye town.
Yeah,
in the desert somewhere.
It seems like one of the most immersive things that I forget the production designer's name. Maybe I'll look it up as we're talking. But yeah, it just, I was very impressed by the whole Bartertown thing. I also I think because of the screenshots that I had seen, or maybe little clips of Beyond Thunderdome that had sort of seeped into my consciousness over the years, I also thought the Thunderdome was way bigger than it actually was. But like when they go on that elevator in the very beginning of Bartertown and go up to, Auntie's like overlook and look down at the thing, it's like, wait, that's the Thunderdome, this tiny little thing in Bartertown? I thought it should be like as big as Bartertown itself or something. But
I thought maybe Bartertown was built around the Thunderdome. Or maybe Thunderdome was like an ancient, like alien structure.
I did kind of love how they seem to have, she's created this whole, or sort of rebuilt out of the ashes, this whole version of society, and everything seems to be running pretty well. And I love the idea of them like dispensing with the concept of war and just settling differences in the dome instead. It's very like, I don't know, like Game of Thrones or something, like, trial by, very like trial by combat, like, you can basically just have like, instead of, like, just war is so stupid, like just thousands and thousands of people just dying for a cause or whatever. Like as an idea, it's just so, it seems so primitive. And this idea, even though it is primitive in its own way, at least they've figured out a way to make it as efficient as possible. Just like, two people enter, one goes out, and then that's it. Like it seems like a big part of I don't know, gang warfare and like the mafia and all that stuff is just like residual hits for hits that happened beforehand, and like people getting revenge for things that just last generations and generations, and it all just keeps going, sometimes to the point where people can't even remember what the initial conflict was even about. And this is just makes it seem like the fastest, most efficient way to do it. Like I'm not advocating that we as a society now like enter a Thunderdome scenario, but I just thought it was a cool sort of futuristic sci-fi thing of a way to get rid of the idea of war and just like settle your differences in this dome, and just that's it. Like whatever happens in the dome, that's it. You can't take your grievances out of that and let them fester. So I just thought it was a cool idea.
Now, to be fair, Auntie did put a hit out on Master Blaster.
Yes, I guess because her plan.
She's already defying her own laws.
Right, but it seemed like before the events of this movie, everything was working pretty smoothly. But yes, you raise a very good point. And then there's the whole thing with the wheel too. What did you think about that?
Yeah, I was like, does she remember Wheel of Fortune? Like, do they remember game shows? I don't know how long ago the apocalypse was.
Right.
The Judgment Day, if you will. And so when I saw the wheel, I was like, wait, how far back do they remember? Because this is like 50s, 60s game shows here we're talking. I did like Auntie's Choice. I was like, that's funny.
I really thought it was going to land on that.
Yeah, me too. And then she goes,
showing it a couple times.
But I don't think the desert is a gulag. A gulag's a prison. But I guess if they consider the desert a prison, then the gulag works just fine. But
yeah.
I really did like that world. Also, everyone's sweaty. Everyone's got, I don't know. I was more obsessed with like the kink aspect of like the S&M, the sexy side of Bartertown, if you will. Especially when we get up to her ivory tower from Neverending Story. And the saxophone player's there, and he's blind, and it's like, yeah, he can play saxophone blind, and that's like the last we see of him. Like these characters that just come and go. It was very otherworldly, like stuff you just don't see, and it was nice to have at least a glimpse into the mind of I guess George Miller, and be like, "Is this what it's like? Is this what it's like to hang out with you?" Just talking about what if there was a, he's just like, what if there was a guy who's like 600 pounds and he's got like nipple clamps, but he also like takes your stuff like a like a consignment shop.
Yeah,
like I don't know. I guess sure. Well, did you watch? So you watched The Road Warrior? That character from the beginning that flies the plane is in that one too. Is this guy like, I don't know how, maybe this is an Australian sense of humor, I'm not sure, but him just like screwing everything up for Mad Max, is that like a common joke in that part of the world?
Man, I don't know. It's been so many years since I've seen those movies. I don't really remember.
I think he's in the second one, and he kind of screws everything up for Mad Max there too, but then like immediately screws him up at the beginning, which I guess is just a way for him to get into Bartertown. But still, I find that his character, although he comes back in the end, his character is like only necessary to put Mad Max into a position of to move the story forward, and then he's kind of like a what's that film term where everything works out because of the one thing?
Deus Ex Machina.
A Deus Ex Machina, yeah.
I wanted to mention one. You mentioned this character maybe appearing in the second movie. One of the interesting things that the Mad Max franchise does, and maybe it's because these guys are like friends with George Miller, or maybe it's because the Australian film community was like relatively smaller then than it is now. But some of the actors appear in multiple movies, but they're actually playing different characters. Like I know that the villain from one of the early movies, Toe Cutter, came back years later and played Immortan Joe, who's the villain of Fury Road. And it's the same actor, but he's just, and so I don't know. It's not supposed to be an evolution of that same character. Gotcha. It's a totally different character, but I think it's just like the relationship that these people must have with George Miller and the way that he was tapped into the sort of burgeoning Australian film world at that time. So
very Taika Waititi. Lock into that region. So you're saying Tina Turner does not come back for Fury Road? Is that what you're telling me?
That's correct. Yes.
Oh man, I was really hoping. The Thunderdome battle. So the whole movie's called Beyond Thunderdome, which technically they do go beyond Thunderdome. But you would think the Thunderdome would return maybe 3 times. Like maybe have a beginning, middle, and end to the Thunderdome. But what did you think of the Slam Ball Thunderdome? Throwdown.
I thought it was kind of cool. I wish more of it was not what are those like rubber bands that they're tied to? Like I wish they were free from the bungees more, so they could sort of like run around and like do their own climbing and things like that. I was expecting to see somebody like scale the walls while there are bystanders on it, and like I expected the bystanders to play more of a role in thwarting people's attempts to get weapons and stuff like that. I feel like there's a lot of possibilities, a lot of potential for different types of a different take on what happens inside a Thunderdome. This is certainly one. I mean, it's I guess there maybe was a little bit more novelty to the idea of like seeing Mel Gibson like just boing his way over this guy 10 times in a row while he's just like being the bull in a bullfighting championship and just like trying to run at him. And it's like, how many times are you just going to do the same thing over and over again? But so I wish there was a little bit more freedom and less restriction inside the Thunderdome, but there are no rules in there. So what are you going to do?
Oh yeah, there are no rules. You can't break any rules because there are no rules. Did you feel compassion for Blaster after that helmet came off?
Oh, of course. Yeah,
I did too. Like I was like, oh, why are we fighting?
Yeah.
But he also did try to tear the crap out of Mad Max. So
he did.
But also it's funny to me that even in a post-apocalyptic world, these Bartertown inhabitants figured out renewable energy before we did.
Yeah. They're
like, just light pig shit on fire.
Right.
Fuel. Like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, that part of the movie I feel like was making I don't know. I feel like there was some commentary there that I didn't get because of the I'm not as immersed in what was going on culturally in the world in 1985 as I obviously am now. But like, there were like big and I'm going to sound like an absolute idiot, and you probably know the history on this better than I do, but like, there was like a run on gas stations in the 1970s in
Right.
the US. Like it was, people were like essentially fighting over gas. There were huge long lines and stuff like that. And I feel like that is kind of the genesis for the Mad Max franchise as a whole. I have not looked this up, so I'm just speculating here.
Yeah.
But the idea, of like creating energy, I feel like that must have hit people slightly differently at the time than it does now. But I guess it still has resonance now. I mean, we're slowly transitioning, I think, away from a fossil fuel economy. Like electric cars, I feel like we're like stymied by the government and stuff. Like, oh yeah, certainly. But like the actual rollout of them as like a widely accepted, mass-produced thing, I feel like was actually, there were like efforts to keep that from happening because of all of the interest in oil and all of that kind of stuff. And now it's like that's slowly being eroded, and electric things are sort of slowly making their way into our society in a more significant fashion. So
yeah, I think a lot of these movies are all about either water or gasoline or the non-renewable resources that we take for granted. And what if, the whole world ended? We killed each other over water or gas, and now we have to pick up the pieces and create Thunderdome.
Yeah, and it's still
every post-apocalyptic society's goal is to create their own Thunderdome.
Okay, so let's talk about the hook of it all, because I'm sure we alluded to this earlier. I'm sure you noticed several similarities. What were the moments or sort of shots or concepts that you saw that, you and I are on the record as being big fans of Hook? I think we actually reviewed it on an old episode of this podcast. So maybe you can go back in the archives and find that if you want to hear us get into detail about that movie. But what did you think about that?
Well, here's what I was going through. So when he was lost in the desert and someone came to save him, the first thing I thought was, I was like, are these the indigenous people of Australia? No, they're just really tan white kids. I think they were alluding to the idea that there were indigenous people in this world, but they were almost there. I think they achieved it for most film students, I guess, people who watch movies, but mostly white, mostly white post-apocalyptic society. And then that was the first time I was like, oh, this feels very Lynchian, this like dream sequence of him almost dying. And then I was like, this does feel like Hook, but it can't be Hook, because Hook came out, 90 and 91? So they had to have been in production. So what I saw more of, because what had come out before Thunderdome was Return of the Jedi. So I thought it was more of like the Ewoks. And when C-3PO is describing what had happened to them in the last three movies to the Ewoks, was like what I saw when they were explaining how the world ended to Mad Max. So I was torn between this. Well, there's definitely some Peter Pan ish stuff in this. I don't know if it's directly Hook, but there's definitely like, where's Tubbs? Where's Marbles? What's his name? Toodles. And but there was definitely some Ewoks in there somewhere, because I don't know, it was still kind of cool though. I liked what they were trying to do, like this group of kids, these lost kids that don't have parents, that were probably, I don't even know how they came about. I guess maybe they're the children of the flight that crashed.
Right. Yeah. I think that's the implication. And I don't know. I was a little fuzzy on the actual details of that too. Like, there's that one moment where they recite the whole history to Max, but they're doing it in this weird sort of like broken, like a hybrid speech that's like a little tough to parse sometimes. I mean, you get most of it, but I feel like the details that I were looking for were in like the 5% of it that I didn't understand.
Right. So they had to have crashed, survived, and then maybe that pilot wandered off. That's why they deified him. Maybe
they were just like all infants like on that flight.
That is a lot of infants on a plane, Ben.
I know. I don't know.
Was it like a newborn baby cruise?
Yeah. As soon as I said it, I was like, oh, this doesn't make any sense at all.
But no, you make a good point, because how would there be absolutely no adults
Yeah.
Unless, let's see, maybe there was a virus that was swept. Maybe that swept through the continent, and it only killed grown-ups.
But then how did like the Bartertown people survive it?
That's a good question. Maybe it didn't expand to that part of the continent.
Well, write in, not just new movies at gmail.com.
Tell us what happened.
You know that. Yeah, please tell us what happens in Mad Max Beyond
Thunderdome. I actually do like the idea of us not knowing, and I love when movies do. I love it and I hate it, because I'd like to know the mythology behind this film, but then at the same time, it's like, well, that's too easy. Like, we're gonna let you stew on this for years, and so I'm probably gonna watch Thunderdome. Probably like, let's say 10 more times before I die. Sure. And I'll have built like I have like Power Ranger theories. I'll have Thunderdome theories.
Okay, all right.
That I'll just subscribe to law. I really like the scene where they recounted the what had happened to the world. I really enjoyed that. I thought that was a nice little that really put me in the movie. I wasn't invested until that moment, and then I was like, I got to see what happens.
My favorite part of that scene was like the idea of them holding this object that kind of looks like a television.
Yeah. Wasn't that weird?
Yeah. I thought that was a really cool little touch that really added a lot to that's a kind of touch that a lesser film wouldn't have. And the whole story would not be as memorable without it. But I thought that was the kind of thing that really like elevates this beyond, other stories of this ilk. So yes, Beyond Thunderdome. Of course.
What was the other movie? Well, towards the end, it kind of feels like Temple of Doom, because he's setting all the kids free in like a mining shaft area. I don't know if you picked up on that.
Yeah.
So the look from a lot of movies,
like the hook of it all. Like I could not get over how many you called them pre-references. I like that. I was just shocked at how much Hook took from this movie, because you've got a grown man in a child-run society. You've got the designs of that area where they all live that is very reminiscent of the Lost Boys camp or whatever you want to call it. You got the general demeanor and costuming of these kids who are basically Lost Boys with a Rufio figure there. There's zip lines involved. There's kids who won't be impressed by a man until he flies because they're like, they think that he's Captain Walker and they're just like, fly the plane. And then there's even a moment where one of the kids smashes a clock with a hammer. Like, wow, this is so hookish. I can't even process it.
I wonder if Spielberg,
Spielberg saw this movie.
Right. But I'm wondering if I don't know if he lifted it. Maybe he was homaging it. Maybe it was like one of his favorite movies.
It could be. I don't know.
Let's get him on the phone.
And here he is, ladies and gentlemen.
Direct line to Spielberg's office. Have you ever thought about writing him a letter, or is that just me?
Well, I actually got to talk to him once. I asked him a question.
He doesn't remember you, Ben.
No, he certainly does not. But I was
kidding. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I was kidding. That was a joke. I have thought about writing George Lucas this year to wish him a happy anniversary, 50th anniversary of Lucasfilm, but I'm trying to figure out what I would say to that guy where he'd be like, yeah, this guy gets it. And it's the same thing with Spielberg. Like, I was going to write him a few years ago to talk about the E.T. ride at Universal Studios and how they shouldn't get rid of it.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I got to go straight to the top on this. I'm going to write Mr. Spielberg because he loves that ride.
Yeah.
That didn't happen. That didn't. So, and then one time we were at Universal Studios Hollywood and his office is there. And I was like, I wonder if I'm going to see this guy. I'm going to see him like walk into his car and I'm going to stop him and be like, hey, that didn't happen either.
Stevie, buddy.
Hello, Stevie. We got a podcast I want to show you. Yeah, everything about this part of the movie was very weird. It is definitely beyond the Thunderdome. Mm-hmm. But I really loved it because in my little imagination, I've always had deserts as a way of transcending worlds. So the fact that they use that to transfer him to this, like, almost like they call it, that's the other one, is they call it Tomorrow Land instead of Neverland.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
And the fact that he's like transformed to this, like a heaven, I guess, or like a paradise of sorts. Mm-hmm. And then wanting to stay, even though he becomes like a horrible person there. He like bullies the children into serving him,
right,
like a despot. And but the idea that this like other world exists in this continent, this post-apocalyptic continent, is just really cool to me. I don't know why. He doesn't travel to another planet, but still, it kind of feels like he does.
Yeah, and the despot thing is interesting because I kind of feel like that's what this whole movie is actually about, is like the idea of authority and what power does to people when, you know, in a societal structure. And like, it's kind of about storytelling, and it's about learning from the mistakes of the past. And yeah, I think despotism plays a huge role in that. It's like, you know, the different types of leaders and different types of societies. And like, you get a brief glimmer of it where he seems like he wants to be the leader of this child community, where he's like, we're not going anywhere. We're staying here. We're just, you know, you guys are going to serve me. I'm just going to be I'm going to be the man here. It's going to be fine. And then I found it to be like kind of powerful that there was these kids led by the female character. I cannot remember what her name was. Let me see.
The indigenous girl?
Yes, Savannah Nix is the character.
That's a pretty normal name.
Yeah, it is. I was expecting it to be something like one of the other characters is named Slake Thirst, M' Thirst. I was expecting it to be like that, but Savannah Nix, that sounds like a third tier Bond girl or something. But
or a glamour rock star.
Yeah, exactly. I found it to kind of be like pretty powerful when she's so clearly desperate for hope, and like this idea of like trekking out into the wasteland and not knowing what is out there, but not being content with the life that you have, and just being like, we're going to lay it on the line and like make a go of it. I thought it was kind of a touching thing. Yeah,
it's their religion. Their religion is that they need to return to this place, whatever, the sky loft or the sky raft or whatever they call it. And that's like driving them even to the point of what's self-harm, I guess.
I guess so. Yeah.
Do you think Mad Max remembers Peter Pan? Do you think is this like a Zardoz where the book, he like uncovers the book at some point and goes, wow. Oh yeah, those are Lost Boys. I'm going to control it. I'll be Peter Pan now.
Man, Zardoz, what an insane movie. I recommend that to everybody.
That's a fever dream.
Watch something just straight up nuts. But I think about that movie all the time.
Do you?
Like the in the context that you mentioned it, like it's this where something happens later on that is like the key to unlocking the way that a society thinks or functions is like an unexpected item that was just like a kind of like a run-of-the-mill thing from a previous society. It's just like such a cool concept wrapped in this totally insane movie.
Yeah, it's very Matrixy before the Matrix.
Yeah. Okay, so like the final third of the movie, I think is just
let's talk about Master Blaster, Ben. How do you I love Master Blaster.
Okay.
At least the Master.
Yeah.
Did you foresee him being to kind of move into the third part of this movie? Did you expect him to look like a scientist by the end of this movie?
Yeah, like a professor or something. Like,
where did he get those clothes? All of a sudden, they're like reestablishing society in this little cart that they're driving across the desert. When before he looked like a Mortal Kombat villain.
Yeah, that was that character shift is so interesting to me because I kind of think it doesn't work because he's so obsessed with being the leader of Bartertown and like, you know, establishing his dominance from underground and all that. But then as soon as like he is separated from Blaster, he sort of like loses all agency as a character and just becomes like the MacGuffin of the movie, where they're like just, you know, hurtling him around the desert and like they're like there's an assumption that he is going to be the one to somehow, save society or be able to kickstart society in a new area. But like nobody ever asks him what he thinks or what he wants to do, or even if he will cooperate with that. It's just all like, you know, it's like huge plans were made and he wasn't consulted at all. So I always just kind of found like it's fascinating because the movie just it shifts into another gear in this chase sequence at the end, but it's like the plot stuff sort of falls apart while they shift that gear. So I don't know. I was intrigued by it and sort of confused by it. But yeah, I liked that character up until the point where he no longer did things that made sense to me.
Yeah, he didn't even speak, I think, in the last part of the movie. Like, he was talking the whole time in the first part, you know, like you said, like asserting his dominance with Blaster at his bottom. But and yeah, you would think because he dresses up like all of a sudden he's going to start pontificating to them about how energy works and how society works and how government works, but instead he's just silent and just trying to be kidnapped. That was another character I was really interested in, because I was like, what does he do that gets them to wherever they end up, like New Sydney or whatever you want to call it. So I feel like there's a novelization for Alan Dean Foster to tell us the remaining tales of Pastor Blaster.
Okay, so like you mentioned the sort of train thing with a house attached. Like, man, George Miller knows how to compose some striking imagery. That feels like something that's out of a Miyazaki movie. Like this sort of house on wheels that is just hurtling through the desert. And like I think my favorite part about that whole chase sequence is one of the characters is looking out behind them while they're in that house and on the run, and they have no plan. And they look out behind them, and I forget which character it is, which bad guy, but he's on one of those old timey like Looney Tunes train carts.
That's right.
And he is just pumping furiously, like so fast where he's able to keep up with like a gas powered vehicle. And I just found it to be hilarious that anybody would be strong enough that they could actually keep up with that or even gain on a vehicle of that size. But just on a pure kinetic storytelling level, George Miller is like unmatched. I mean, that's the entirety of Fury Road is just a giant chase scene, and it's very impressive. So I was impressed by this as well.
I was just about to say, I'm glad they didn't make the whole movie about car chases and save it to the very end, because then it makes it a little more intense for you, because you haven't seen it the whole movie.
Oh, you might not like Fury Road.
Yeah, so it sounds like the whole movie is a car chase scene, which I mean, if it's embedded well enough, I mean, I really like this movie, so maybe he's wasn't he like 90 something when he directed?
I think he was 80 or in his 80s.
Oh, okay, I thought he was really old.
But, yeah,
not in a bad way, but it's. There were a lot of action figure possibilities in that last scene. I'll tell you that much. You have the cowboy of cowboy car.
Yeah, it looked like the.
So they remember cowboys.
Yeah, man, and it's completely wrapped in cowhide for some reason.
Yeah.
Like, oh well, yeah.
Protects it against sun damage. No, but it's the one thing I was like, oh, this isn't going to work. It was when they all piled into that tiny plane.
No, it was like a clown car with wings.
And I remember seeing like 10 people, and then all of a sudden I assumed they were all in the plane. I'm like, this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
But it did. Dagnabbit, they did it.
Yeah, somehow against all odds.
It was definitely. I really dug the ending when they finally escape the deserts. But yeah, very Terminator-esque. T2, no robots though. And I love those scenes in the Terminator movies, and so this one was no exception. Foggy, miniature models blown up to be actual buildings.
With little lights on at the very end, like different than the flashback, kind of like, the visual representation of like a society on the rise again. So
yeah, it's like the city on the hill. Like everyone's trying to be like that now. So Bartertown, it was its version of society, and then you have the angelic children, the one run by children. Which one do you want to live in, Ben?
You gotta go Bartertown.
You gotta get your kink satisfied at Bartertown. I gotta go Bartertown, baby.
Absolutely, yeah. I feel like you gotta
that pig shit.
And the Atomic Cafe. It seems like a great place to have a drink.
Oh yeah, there's ribs all day, every day. Do ribs come from pigs? Is that where ribs come from?
I guess they probably had some killer barbecue there.
I should have said pork.
Yeah,
pork definitely comes from pigs.
Yeah. I didn't even think about the barbecue aspect, but yeah, that's gotta be.
Oh, you know how great that place smells.
Oh man,
because all the shit's in the underground.
Yeah,
barbecue on top.
Yeah. Well, I think that was all that I had in my notes. Tyler, did you have any other points from Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome that you wanted to bring up?
No, there's definitely a lot of references, or it feels like references to other movies. I don't know if that's just the 80s lens, but you'll definitely hear C-3PO when they're explaining how Captain Walker crashed his plane. But this is definitely a movie. You don't have to, as a threequel, Ben, I don't think you have to watch the first two entries to get on board with Thunderdome. My only criticism is not enough Thunderdome, and Anti-Entity should have had her own movie. That's it.
Okay, yeah. Well, maybe. I think they're doing a Furiosa prequel movie next. I want to say in like 2023 is when that's scheduled for, which is like the Furiosa character appears in Fury Road. So you'll meet her very shortly. Okay. So maybe if the idea is that this franchise no longer is restricted to the Mad Max character, then maybe we could get an Anti-Entity spin-off movie, maybe a prequel, maybe something, maybe a sequel. What is she doing now?
Anti-Entity, a Mad Max story.
Yeah, exactly. So
what is she doing now, Ben? You think she's trying to find whatever New Sydney?
I feel
maybe
like
she's using all her resources to get there, and she can't get there. She wants to take over that town.
She's wise enough to figure out the whole methane situation eventually.
Okay.
So maybe I feel like she's started. She has rebuilt Bartertown, and while New Sydney is sort of doing its own thing, I feel like she's got the Bartertown back in her iron grip. So
Mad Max Iron Fist.
Oh yeah, I like that. Okay, so I think that's going to bring us to the end of this episode.
Ben, there's the three-goal. I got my shot.
Is it a tranquilizer dart?
I hope so.
That thing took
it was. Yeah, it was. It was just a trank. Enough to put down a couple bears, but still got my eagle back. Hold on. Hold on. There's a couple more birds. Oh, no. Those aren't eagles, Ben. Those aren't even three goals. Those are vultures, son. Are we? Oh God, Ben. Did we transfer worlds? Are we trapped in the desert between worlds?
I think we may be. We thought the three goal. I mean, it was so high up when it was dropping those scrolls in previous episodes. I think we thought that it was an eagle, but it might have actually been.
I think it was a vulture. It was a thrulcher. No, I think it was a vulture.
Oh, amazing.
It really would help if I had written a lot of this stuff down instead of coming up with it the second we start recording.
Well, Tyler, vultures in a desert, that kind of conjures a different type of genre, don't you think?
Yeah, it kind of makes me want to do a limited series in like 2025 on... Ben, do you like Westerns?
I do like Westerns. I think we alluded to this in a previous episode that we may do another mini-series on the Not Just New Movies podcast. This very feed that you're listening to now, who knows when it's going to happen. But yeah, I think we can commit to at least one Western movie that we're going to talk about at some point in the future, and maybe we'll spin it out into another mini series, kind of like NJNM to the third power. Maybe it'll just be one Western and then we'll talk about something else. Maybe we'll do one Western and end the show forever. Who knows? But I think
that would be weird.
Well, yeah, it would have to be like
it's a lot of buildup.
Yeah, exactly. I don't even know where to go from here, Tyler.
I can guarantee you at least 3 episodes.
Okay, all right.
I can give you 3.
I'll buy into that. So I think for now, though, Tyler, I think we have to pull a Mad Max and just like wander off into the desert with these thrulchers circling overhead.
I guess you didn't see. I had this monkey here this whole time we've been recording. He's going to bring us as much water as he can carry.
Oh, great. Okay, that'll be very, very helpful. Yes. So as we wander through the desert towards the oasis that will be our Western miniseries that will come up at some point. I wish you safe travels, and thank you all for listening. And Tyler, where can people maybe catch us on the internet during our trek in between our metaphorical journey between miniseries?
Well, I'll try to connect to some Wi-Fi out here, but at NJNM Podcast is the podcast Twitter. I'm at Space Whale 2020X. And I say silly stuff on the internet. And it's not funny. I'm not saying it's funny. Just whatever whatever I feel like saying. Very
real hard sell to follow that.
Yeah.
It's great stuff.
This is all I do, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Ben Pears. I'm writing at slashfilm.com if you want to read all sorts of movie news and lists and what have you there, editorials, interviews, things of that sort. You can check out slashfilm.com. And I think follow us on the podcast feed on the Twitter podcast account, and that will probably be the place where we announce what our Western is going to be. But fair warning, it could be a long time before we actually record it. So
if you let us know, email, Twitter, how excited you are for NJNM Out West, that would probably burgeon us on. But if it's only our own excitement for the series, then it may take a little longer.
It may.
We need money.
If any billionaire investor out there wants to like
Mr. Stitcher,
something like that,
Max Stitcher.
Oh wow, what a great character! Maybe
you might show up in a Western. Yeah,
if you want more content like that, feel free to hit us up on email. But in the meantime, folks, take it easy, and we'll be
let the
hitting
freak live on
dusty trail. But yes, thank you all for listening, and hopefully you enjoyed this mini series. Tyler, thank you for coming along this journey with me.
Oh sure, of course.
And
happy to ride your coattails.
And we'll saddle up and see you guys again sometime in the future.